Welcome back to my studio. Well, today it's a blustery, actually windy, cloudy day outside, and I was hoping to do a little bit of photography, really paper negative self-portraits. But I'm going to do it indoors today because the weather is more conducive to being indoors. And of course, the problem with paper negatives is that they're slow in terms of their speed. This particular paper that I'm using, Arista Grade 2 RC paper, is rated normally about an ISO of 12 in daylight. And so I'm going to rate it around 12 also. The lights up here, I'm using some daylight balanced LED light bulbs that have light output equivalent to 100-watt incandescent bulbs. And I also have an LED ring light suspended over here. So there's a lot of daylight colored artificial lighting in here, and through past experience I know that I've been able to do Harman direct positive still life subjects here under these artificial lights with just about the same exposures that I would normally use in daylight. So I'm hoping that I can just set up here and do some quick little artificial light selfie portraits. And so during the winter season, when the outdoor lighting might be more subdued, dimmer, less blue or UV in the light, I know that I can come indoors and do still lifes or portraits in my studio here just under these simple lights and get good results. So that's what I'd like to do today. I have my Intrepid 4x5 with a Fujinon 135f 5.6 lens set up on a Manfrotto tripod there. And I think it would be fun to show you guys how I go about doing self-portraits unassisted with a view camera where you have to focus onto yourself. That's right. How do you focus onto yourself when you simultaneously have to be in front of the lens and behind the camera to look at the view screen? Well, that'll be interesting. Stay tuned. Well, I've set up my Intrepid camera on the tripod in front of my table here, and I've connected this paracord with a bulldog clip to the front lens standard of the camera. The paracord has knots about every 6 inches, and I've attached this focusing target to the paracord. It's a white card with some black tape, and I'm going to stretch the cord out so it's tight, and then I'll focus the view screen on the card. This will be my focusing target, but I have to figure out how to stretch the cord out far enough while I can still be behind the camera to operate the focusing. So here is a view of the focusing target stretched out with the paracord tight in front of the camera lens. I'm using an aluminum yardstick taped to the top edge of the focusing target, and the yardstick is long enough that it permits me to stand behind the camera to look at the view screen while stretching the focusing target out in front of the camera, so I can preset the camera to the distance of the focusing target with the paracord tightly stretched out. This will be the position that I will be sitting at when I take my self-portrait. I'm going to open up the lens so I can focus on my focusing target. Here is a view of the view screen with the focusing target stretched out in front of the camera and the camera focused on the viewing screen. I have the film back of the Intrepid camera rotated to the portrait orientation. Okay, in order to determine my exposure, I really want to stretch my head out with the focusing target tight so that I know I'm in the right distance away from my lights. These lights are so bright, if you get a little closer, it gets dramatically brighter. So I have to meter myself at the distance that I'm going to be shooting from. Metering my face, I'm setting the meter to ISO 10. The exposure is f5.6 at 2 seconds. I'm going to close the lens on my camera and set the exposure. Okay, I'm setting my aperture to 5.6, which is wide open. My shutter speed will be set to bulb mode, and I will time this 2-second exposure by hand and make sure my shutter is closed. Okay, so my shutter is set and cocked. I'm going to use the focusing target here. I have my shutter release cable here. It's a little short. My long one broke, but this is the next longest one. So I'm going to stretch my arm out so I can operate the shutter release cable. It's actually off to the side of the field of view, so you won't see my arm in the picture. So I stretch out the cord so it's tight. I set the focusing target next to my eye so that my front of my face. My eyes will be hopefully sharply focused. I'm going to adjust my side-to-side position so that I'm centered on the lens board of the camera. Lower the focusing target while keeping my head still, and then this is going to be a 2-second self-timed exposure. Like that. Well, I've made 2 exposures. One a little bit closer into the light, one further back, and I have to now process these 2 paper negatives, so I'm going to transfer the paper negatives from the sheet film holders to my Jobo 2820 test print developing tank, and then I'll be able to process both of these negatives simultaneously on my homemade rotary base in my kitchen. Let's go do that. Okay, so I have some Dectol. This is about a heaping teaspoon of Dectol powder in water. I don't mix my Dectol into a stock solution first. I mix straight from powder to working solution. It seems to last longer that way. Rinse water, stop bath, Kodak indicator stop bath, rinse water, fixer, and rinse water in that order. So the rinses are 30 seconds. Stop bath is 30 seconds, developers 2 minutes, fixers 2 minutes. So 2 minutes, 30, 30, 30, 2 minutes, 30. This is my homemade roller base. It's just a piece of plywood that's been painted rather thoroughly. It has a rubber bottom to enable it not to slip too badly and be a little bit moisture resistant. And then I'm using these caster wheels that I got at a hardware store. And I just sanded down the molding rim. There's like a little rim on the middle of the wheels. I sanded them down so they're a little bit smoother. And of course, the test drum fits onto the roller base like that. It is a Jobo 2820 test drum. It holds 2 4x5 sheets of paper, and it takes 40 milliliters of chemistry, so it's very thrifty on the chemistry. All right, let's see, what do we have here? Oh, yeah. Ah, yes. I like the tones, the shadow detail. The shadows aren't too dark. My face isn't too dense. Let's take a look at the other one. Oh, yeah, this is actually pretty decent. I think there's detail there in the highlights, which is the dark parts of the negative, of course. And the shadow detail still has detail in it because I pre-flashed the paper. So this is the first image that I did, and it was more closely underneath the light fixture. I think it was f5.6 at 1 second, timed with the shutter of the lens. And then this picture was with me sitting further back from the light source, closer to the bookcase in the background. And this was f5.6 at about 2 seconds, and this is hand timed, just counting 1 1000, 2 1000. So I really like the results. Even at f5.6, I think the depth of focus is wide enough that with the focusing aid carefully employed, you can actually get some decent focus on the face, and it looks like I did. It looks like the exposures are halfway okay. I think this second picture may be slightly brighter on the face than the first picture here, which I think is probably a better image overall. I think the detail's better on my face. Anyways, I really like how these paper negatives come out under the artificial lighting. The daylight balanced LED light bulbs seem to work really well for this kind of an application. Well, I think it's really important if you're a creative person who likes to mess with paper negatives to be able to set up a system like this where you can do it during the winter months. So paper negatives require a lot of blue light, and outdoors is a good source of blue light in the summertime, but in the wintertime where the sun is low in the sky and the days are short and you don't need fancy lighting, the normal light bulbs are normal household medium base kinds of lights you'd use in lamps around the house. They're just daylight balanced, and the light output is equivalent to 100 watts of incandescent light. And then there's a ring light also that I have that's adjustable intensity and adjustable color temperature. These together work really well for paper negatives, and I really don't lose hardly any speed at all of the paper. It's almost the same as shooting outdoors. And then being able to process it inside the house in the comfort of your warm, cozy kitchen with a rotary processing system. And the way I've rigged it up, for 4x5s, of course, I have to use that Jobo test print tank. But if you're willing to cut paper negatives down to smaller sizes, let's say no wider than maybe 3 inches on the short side, you can wrap them inside one of those stainless steel 35 millimeter film developing tanks. Take the reels out, put the paper inside with the emulsion side facing in, put the cap on, and now you can rotary process the paper with the tank sideways being rotated, and you only need maybe 40 or 50 milliliters of chemistry. It's a very thrifty process. So doing it in the convenience of your warm house where all the chemistry stays at constant temperature, constant brightness of lights, and the trick here is being able to rig up a focusing system so you can focus on yourself as your subject matter, and that enables you to have convenient portraits indoors during those long, cold winter months. And that brings up a good point. Why do you want to take pictures of yourself, Joe? Well, besides the fact that I love taking pictures of myself, it's a convenient subject matter. So I have other family members who are less comfortable with having their test pictures taken and spread throughout the internet, and I'm very comfortable with that. So I use myself as a test portrait a lot. I think it's kind of fun. And so when I'm in the mood to shoot paper negatives and practice my portraiture, I use moi as the test subject, which I think is kind of fun. But it enables me to keep my hands skilled in this business of using paper negatives for portraits. So when the warmer months of the year come by, maybe I can do this portraiture with other subject matter besides myself. Well, I hope this gives you some ideas on how to stay photographically creative during these upcoming cold winter months with paper negatives and simple photographic equipment like this. I wish you the very best. I hope you stay creative and have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.